Hello and welcome to Life and Fight of a podcast. My name is Jake Cross from Empire Grappling and UK Fighting Championships. I'm joined by my co-host Simon Price. How's it going, Si?
Yeah, good mate. What's up? Busy week this week. Just looking forward to the weekend, to be honest.
The sun is beaming behind you, and Violet is to the left of me, so you can't see it. Or my right, depending on how you're looking. And then also our guest today is Violet Bennet. How's it going, Violet?
Yeah, it's really good, thank you. It's nice to be seeing your wonderful faces again. I feel like my life is defined by podcasts now, so, you know, it feels natural.
So with people that don't know you, so more recently you were the commentator with Lee Herbert for Empire Grappling Invitational. But Violet, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into training.
Sure. So I'm a purple belt training out of Stealth Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Manchester, but I've trained all over the place because I'm originally from Brighton. I trained at Elements in Brighton with Yusuf Nabi, which was awesome, and I go back there a lot. But then I went to university in York, so I trained up there. So I've trained all over the place. And I've competed at a lot of Empires, which are some of my favourite comps. So I think that's how I wound up doing the commentary.
So what made you get into training when you was down in Brighton? Was it something that popped up, or you had a friend that did it, or how did it work?
So I'd always wanted to do martial arts from when I was a little kid, and I think I kind of shafted my mum on a previous podcast because I said that she wouldn't let me train because she was worried I was going to get my nose broken. And to be fair, I think she was right because I've broken it twice. So as soon as I got my driving license, I started going to what was effectively a fight club, and I didn't realize this at the time. I just thought it was the closest martial arts to me, but it ended up just being a group of guys that would get together in like quite a dingy sports hall once a week and just beat each other up effectively. So I started there doing Thai boxing, or like a version of Thai boxing, and slowly made my way in a strange series of events, including going to Thailand, and made my way towards mixed martial arts. And I did mixed martial arts. I had a fight. I loved it. And then I started grappling, and it just took over my life. So here I am today, still grappling all the time.
What made you pick Stealth when you moved to Manchester then?
I'd heard really amazing things. I'd heard amazing things up and down the country, especially about the head coach, Steve. Every single person I'd spoken to just said, oh, you've got to visit there. It's really, really great. And it was also like they run their classes in quite a different way to a lot of gyms that I've seen, in that it's very relaxed. Steve's attitude towards sort of rules and, you know, systems is that as long as you're on the mats and you're training and you're being respectful, you're all good. And it's lovely because I was working a really stressful job. I was a secondary school English teacher in quite a tricky school. And so doing that and trying to compete and train full time was pretty heavy. But it was great because it meant that I could come to Stealth. And if I was 20 minutes late for class because I'd been with a kid after school or whatever, it was no big deal. I could just jump on the mats, or if I came 2 hours early, there'd be an open mat. So kind of the flexibility of classes was what really attracted me in the first place. And then I visited, and my plan when I came to Manchester was I was going to visit like a lot of different gyms. I was going to get a vibe for all of them, and I visited Stealth, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And there's quite a funny story which not many people know. If you would like to know about the first time I met Mr. Samuel Quinn, if you would like it.
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
Yeah. So I came to Stealth, and my first role in positional rounds was Sam, and it was the best role ever. It was so fun. We had a great time, and then I got him in the normal rounds, and it was super great because he didn't go really light, but he obviously didn't hurt me, and we just had a really fun role with berimbolos flying out all over the place. And yeah, so we became training partners for a long time, and now we're slightly more than training partners. So I won't say that's what kept me at Stealth, because it definitely wasn't, but no, it's an awesome gym, and they're very, very open to people from all different backgrounds, all different experience levels, and I love it. I've actually just moved out of Manchester, so my heart is hurting quite a bit talking about Stealth.
So you've moved out of Manchester completely now?
Yeah, I'm a bit shit, and I'm quite nomadic. I move quite a lot. It's kind of just how I like to live my life. I like to travel a lot. I like to settle in different places. So I was doing my teacher training for 2 years in Manchester while working full time with a program called Teach First. So I finished that up, and I think it was always the plan to move to Brazil after those 2 years, but with the Bolsonaro kind of regime kind of going hard and strong at the moment, Brazil isn't the best place for someone like me right now. I'm LGBT, and that is not somewhere I really want to be, you know, committing to living for a long time. It is genuinely not particularly safe. So that's kind of gone off the cards for a little bit. So instead, I am going to travel for about 6-9 months, and then I'm going to do my master's next year, and I'm really excited. So yeah, a wild time is afoot after coronavirus.
Have you sort of decided where you're doing your masters and like what subjects you'd be looking at with it?
Yeah, I want to do international development because I'm obviously an educator, but I want to specialize in education in post-conflict societies or post-conflict communities. So those are communities that have experienced some form of conflict, and that could be a literal war zone, or it could be somewhere where there's been a lot of gang violence or a lot of gun crime, a lot of knife crime. So education in those settings, it needs certain adjustments, and it needs a lot more close community work. And kind of it's not going to be what you necessarily expect. You really need to work very closely with that community to facilitate, you know, the learning of not just young people, but of the whole community. And that's something I'm really, really passionate about. So, but in order to kind of best serve those communities, I need to go do my master's first, because there's nothing worse than someone trying to help when they don't have the knowledge or the experience, I think. So
a bit like when a white belt tries to teach you.
Yes, exactly. So I think I'm a big fan of putting people with lived experience in the driver's seat of these sorts of things. And that's kind of my MO. But in order to do that, I need to go learn some things. So I'm off. But yeah, the masters, I haven't decided exactly where I want to do it. I'm getting a lot of pressure from Sam to do it in London, because he went down and trained with some amazing people, and he's like, we've got to go to London. But I'm looking at London, I'm looking at Dublin. I've actually looked at some places in America, so we'll see. Got to do some more research before I choose, for sure.
I guess that's the thing that you kind of don't really take into consideration. Like you like to travel and stuff, and then obviously you love Manchester Stealth and all your friends and family now there, and now obviously Sam's in the equation, and then it's what you want to do, but Sam's like with you and wants to do it, but like these
Sure.
little places that he wants to do as well.
Yeah, and I think as in any good relationship, it's about having those discussions and being able to have those conversations openly. He's obviously going hard on the jiu-jitsu route, and I really respect that. I think that you know, drive to do something that you love and that fulfills you, that's just as important as what I want to do. I don't think that there's either of our kind of career paths that is better or more important than the other. So I think that's something I do take into account. I think it's really important, not necessarily to compromise consistently with your partner, but I think being able to listen to each other and have those conversations, it's about quality of life, and it's important. So yeah,
it's a partnership, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like,
I think
to work together for.
Yeah, and I think especially when you've been friends and training partners before you go into a relationship, those structures are already there. They are for me anyway, and I think it's got to stay respectful. I really can't stand when I see some of my friends in relationships, and it's just consistently a battle about who's going to compromise and who's not. I don't like that sort of thing. And to be honest, I'm really busy. I don't really have time for anything that's not like awesome and easy, and that's what I've got. So I'm lucky.
Simon, so you obviously you train as well, and your partner trains. Do you find there's a balance with regards to training, or do you find it's quite easy that because you both train?
Yeah, like we're both fairly independent, and we both have similar but different goals as well. So we're quite aligned in our direction, and yeah, it's like Violet said, we communicate a lot. So if there's anything that's giving us a bit of a gripe, we'll speak about it, and we'll sort of hear both sides of the argument, or not argument, just both sides of the view, and we'll sort of come to either happy medium, or it'll be a case of, okay, this is more important to you at this moment in time, so this is what we're going to go with. And it's like I say, it's not constant compromise. It's working with each other to make sure that we're both happy and we're both succeeding as well.
Absolutely.
There's I won't name names, so I don't think it's fair unless I had them on the podcast, but there's a couple of couples where they have kids, where they both train and they both compete, and they've come up to me on a number of occasions saying, oh, I'm competing today, my partner's not there, they've got the kids, or I'll train on Monday because they've got the kids and they'll train Tuesday. And I love that dimension, that they're not together, which is probably they'd rather train together and have fun and do it as a couple, but it's not always going to be possible when you've not got the people around you that can support you and look after your kids, because that's a burden in itself. You can't just rely on people because you want to do your thing for your kids. You've got to try and have the middle ground, like both of you said. So I think that's quite a cool thing that maybe most people in the jiu-jitsu scene and combat scene don't really see, that if you have a couple that does both, both train, you've got to have that sort of middle ground of maybe I train tonight and then you train a different night, which I think is quite a good adaptation.
Yeah, the way I see it, like I'm perfectly happy and capable of doing everything I do by myself, and I have done for a long time. So if I'm going to have someone in my life, like, we've got to be a squad, we've got to be a team, you know, and Sam is 100% my closest and best teammate, you know, in every sense of the word. With regards to jiu-jitsu, with regards to getting ready for comps, with regards to nutrition, like everything, you know, that's my number one. But I don't know, I think social media definitely contributes to this idea of like what a relationship should be and look like. And sometimes, you know what, it's really not about flowers. It's like, did you get the tape I needed because I screwed up my wrist and I've got to compete on Saturday? Did you get the tape? Like, and he gets the tape. So, you know, it's the little things. Or like when he was getting ready for Empire, he was coming off quite a really severe injury. He'd really badly damaged his shoulder. It dislocated. There'd been a lot of tears. It'd been really tricky, and it had been a long time that he'd been out. So what kind of doing my job in my relationship looked like in those times was making sure that I was cooking really good, healthy, like nutritious food, even if he just wanted to eat a bag of Maltesers instead. And also just like driving him to the gym to do his rehab 3-4 times a week, even though it was really boring, because we couldn't train that well. Like, I just basically had to watch him do his rehab while I lifted. But sometimes if it's a partnership, those are the things. And then I get to see him win the way he won on Empire, and that's everything. Like, that's huge. And I think there's sometimes an assumption that because I'm a woman, that I'm somehow like backseat when it comes to the competition side of things. And it's just not the case. Like, he came out with me to Rome, and he couldn't compete. He was injured, but he came out, he supported, literally just to be there. So it's not just him in the competition seat all the time, for sure. You know, it goes both ways. And we had a conversation yesterday actually about a potential really heavy weight cut for a really amazing opportunity. We'd have to cut a lot of weight, and we spoke about it. He really wanted to take it, and I just said, look, you need to think about these factors. I'm not going to make the decision for you. Go speak to like a few other people, speak to your boys, but that's my like 10 cents. And I think even like people forget that even like weight cutting's brutal and it makes you a dick. Like, I hate weight cutting, and to be honest, I pretty much refuse to do it because it's bad for me mentally. It's rough, and I'm sure, Simon, you've had some experience, or your partner has, of dealing with you. And I just said to Sam, I was like, look, like, come on, have some love for me. But no, he's awesome, and I'm very lucky to have someone in my corner like that, because it's epic.
I just looked up on there. Me and Catherine College are tag team partners because we kind of bounce off each other on the wrestling term, because I'm a wrestling geek. But it's a good point you touched on about the weight cutting, and a lot of things that I picked up on doing this Empire Grappling Invitational last week, and dealing with people getting the photos in for fight cards and information, and make sure they weren't on weight, because Simon's done MMA for years in the past, and we've fought, we've cut weight, and we've had to do these certain things because that's what MMA is about. Whereas in the jiu-jitsu scene, no one's used to this yet, or haven't been for a long time. So it's trying to get them to adapt into you've got to, like, there was certain people that won't come on the podcast with me and Simon because they didn't feel comfortable, because they didn't want to sell themselves. And that, for me, that's you need to be able to sell yourself, especially with people like Jed and Sam now, who I get into the sort of the pro jiu-jitsu scene that want to start getting paid, you need to sell yourself. You need to have an audience. You need to have a fan base. And I feel like the weight cutting side is still alien to a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu scene as well. Like the most I cut when I was in physical shape was about 8 kilos, and that was brutal. I'm sure Simon's done a lot more because I know he used to fight at welterweight when you cut from like the 90s.
Believe it or not.
Wow. But no, I think the selling yourself side of things, like, for example, you all know Tyrese Cunliffe. Like, he's not just an incredible competitor and he's only 17 years old. He's also one of the best coaches I've worked with. He's insane. He has been teaching me so many entries with regards to the legs and teaching me the concepts. And people have tried before. I've worked really well with Lee Herbert. He taught me a lot as well. But people have really tried, and Tyrese just got it, right? And so Tyrese is doing privates at the moment and he's not charging a lot. But all he'd done was post on Facebook with like, I'm doing privates, hit me up. And I was like, baby, we need a poster. Like, we've got to make this look professional. So while I was waiting in my car for Sam, I just chucked together like a quick poster on like the shitty app, you know, like it wasn't a big hyped up deal. And I was like, there you go. Like, let's go, you know, like people will see that and they'll be on it. So I think if you're lucky enough to have people who have your back like that, because I know that my boys always have my back, you know, then that's amazing. But if you don't, and I've been through situations where it's literally just me hyping myself up, trying to get fights, you know, you've got to be doing that stuff for yourself and you've got to invest in yourself a bit, you know, even if you've got to fake it, you know, even if behind closed doors, you're like, I'm awful, like, I can't do this. In public, you've got to be like, yep, I'm here, like, let's go. So I think and you don't see that in jiu-jitsu. You see it a lot in MMA, but you're so right, Jake. Like, jiu-jitsu people need to be hyping themselves up a little bit more.
I think on that side of things as well, like it's important for when they are doing that to stay true to themselves as well.
100%.
There's nothing worse than someone who's like myself. I'm a bit more introverted.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go out there and do what Gordon Ryan does and start running my mouth and being a bit of an ass.
That's when it goes too far, right?
Yeah. Whereas like I'll have a bit of a back and forth if time comes, but I'm not going to like resort to insults. And I think seeing like a lot of the younger athletes now look up to, say, the likes of Gordon Ryan and Dylan Dennis and seeing how they've kind of got so far. And it is due to their mouth and how they've sort of basically just got a lot of attention and people wanting to see them lose. And it's sort of, I don't really know if I want like my younger athletes having them as role models. And even like when time comes when I have kids, I don't want my kids to look up to people like that. No. Who it sort of sends a wrong message. And it's quite a toxic message as well, which I think
it is.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to see. Like I've got a lot of respect for Gordon Ryan's jiu-jitsu. The man is clearly, his jiu-jitsu is stunning. It's beautiful. There's no doubt. But I find his public presence and some of the things he's publicly said to be absolutely despicable. And it is frustrating when you have people in the sport who are not just amazing at jiu-jitsu, they're clearly amazing people, and they're not in the spotlight. But then you look, if we go back to MMA, because it's kind of like they're the grown-ups in a way, and we're like, right, we're coming. But you look at like Georges St-Pierre, you know, he's a gentleman through and through, and he's also a scary, scary fighter. You know, he's one of the best in the game. So no, I agree with you. I really hate seeing people like Gordon Ryan with regards to his like public persona being idolized the way they are. But then we see it outside of jiu-jitsu, like the kids I teach, some of the rappers or the sports players that they idolize are horrendous human beings. Yeah. And I'm like, no, come on. Like, but it's the way, isn't it?
Sorry, Si. One of my favorite books that I've read throughout the years is a guy called Eric Bischoff, which is a big name in the wrestling scene. And his book was Controversy Creates Cash. Now, it's the most truest sort of quote or book title I've ever come across, because it does, if you see something like that, or you talk about it no matter what, even if it's positive or negative, if it's controversial, most people will talk about it. But there is a fine balance, especially when you're promoting like me, or whether you're teaching like Simon, who's got his own gym, or even an individual like yourself, either that's teaching / compete in training and you want sponsors and you want to be picked up by certain organizations and stuff like that. There's a fine balance of you've got your own beliefs. And I know I spoke to Violet and Simon about things that I can't be a part of because, not because I don't agree with you, but because people that compete in my events might see that as me supporting one thing rather than another. And I've got to be completely in the middle. And it is frustrating to the fact that I'm very opinionated anyway. Simon knows me very well. I've got a big opinion, especially off camera, not in a negative way. I've got certain things that I believe in and that you should go down. And most of it in a positive sense, like it could be as negative, as little negative as like, come on guys, you need to sell yourself. You need a picture. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that, because I promote all angles and I want to see them do as good as possible. There's certain fighters that I've come across and Simon's come across in the past, which are legitimate killers, but they don't know how to sell themselves, and that's where they've fallen off the wayside. And I want to try and help and teach people that way. And I was never a great fighter, but I know how to promote myself and I know how to promote my events, and I want to try and bring that into the jiu-jitsu side. And I think Saturday was a massive mark of a lot of people that only knew your Sams, your Jeds, etc., you Violet, that turned around and was like, them 4 to 6 fighters from UKFC, the men and women, were killers, and they walked through most of the opponents that were legit jiu-jitsu guys and girls. So I feel like that's where the merge will start happening. I'm hoping people from both sides will start to see that a bit better.
Yeah, one person that I met when he came up to Manchester for Empire, and Sam and Ty know him well, is Jed Hugh. And I got, we had some really great chats over a few days. And one thing that I was really impressed by with him was the balance of self-belief. He's got an extraordinary mindset with regards to competition, and he just has this unfaltering sense of self-belief, but it doesn't descend into like cockiness, in that his attitude is absolutely spot on. He works incredibly hard. He travels, I think his travel to and from training is longer than the training itself. It's hours and hours. I think he'll do like 2 hours one way to train for 3 hours and then 2 hours back through all the tubes and trains in London. But he's super, super humble. He was a great, great role. And if you give him a compliment, he says a genuine thank you. And you know what, that balance, it's a very hard balance to hit. But I think to have him as a role model for some of, especially our like young up and comers, that's what we need to see. Like, we need to see people that work incredibly hard, recognize that they should be reaping the benefits, but also stay humble enough to accept compliments and help from anyone. So it's lovely to see someone, and Jed isn't particularly old. I think he's like 23 or something. So to see that, the future is bright for sure.
Yeah. Simon, what do you take about sort of the next breed? Also, you're training and teaching part of that. And obviously you're seeing it from the outside looking in, like you're a fan of the sport, and I know you break down a lot of jiu-jitsu. What do you see of the new breed, like the Jeds?
Being as an older player, it's quite a scary thought, to be honest. But no, it's exciting. Like, when I was helping teaching the kids class over at Factory, some of the creativity of the children coming through was astounding. Like, they'd just do something and pull it off, and be like, "Oh, like, well done. Where did you learn that?" And they were like, "I don't know, it just felt right." And I'm like, that kind of creativity and forward thinking is more. I think it's kind of what we need in the sport, because I think the old guard's very sort of stuck in my gym only. I can't show these super secret techniques.
Can't cross train.
Yeah, can't cross train. Can't do this. Can't do that. And it's sort of, hopefully the sort of new generation coming through, like, seem to be more open-minded, seem to be a lot more accepting of, okay, nothing's new, but I can hopefully try and reinvent it and have my own spin on it, have my own flair on it. And just hoping that, like Violet said, they keep the humility there as they do progress. But then also, if you're good, like, have that self-belief of, yeah, I'm going to walk in here, I'm going to win the matches. And if someone says, well done, I'm going to be sincere in thanking them. But no, it's very exciting as a spectator, and also like as a coach, that hopefully I'll be involved in this next generation of grapplers coming through and seeing where the sport goes.
It's crazy to think that Jed's only 23, and that's sort of when my competing career sort of ended. And obviously I've not competed in 7 years. I'll never say never, but it's not like that right now. It's not where my head's at all. I'm like 30 kilos heavier than when I used to compete, which is ridiculous. But it's just crazy to see that was sort of my end, and Jed still feels like he's only just getting started. Like, his name's only sort of come on people's tongues outside of his bubble in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. And seeing what he's been doing, and I like people like Shane Curtis as well, and then like Tyrese, who I've known Ty for about 5 or 6 years, and I rode with him when he was about 12 or 13, and he had the technique then, but I was a lot bigger than him, and he didn't have any sort of man strength. Whereas I say he taught me because I went to one of his classes when Steve Henshaw was busy. I think he was away, and I was like gobsmacked at, like you said, Violet, how good he was teaching. He was more than me. I knew he would in roles anyway. And like, he was just, his entries and how he explained things. And it's funny because when me and Simon had him on the podcast on the 2 occasions, he's good at speaking, but he likes the word like a lot, and he uses it rather than. So when he was teaching, I was gobsmacked at how different he was and how confident around the jiu-jitsu scene and how much he loved teaching people. And he was teaching technically his stepdad and his mum, which is phenomenal for, at the time, he was 16.
Big shout out to Tyrese's mum, Jodie, as well. She is an absolute don. Like, she is a boss. She had Jake Moody and Jed Hughes staying at her house. Me and Sam came over to like say hi. She put a full roast dinner in front of Sam. Like, who is this woman? Like, she's everything. She's also a super tough role. Like, she's epic. She's got a load of kids. She's got a booming business. Like, I think the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that it's a family business as well. And like, if you look at Tyrese's success, you've got to see his mom there as well. You've got to see the work that's been put in to get him to all of those comps and to, you know, make sure that he's there, he's eating good, like all of that. It's definitely a family game, and I love seeing their success as a family for sure, because no one deserves it more than them.
And they grew up where I grew up, so I love supporting them even more. At least around the corner from me, so big up to Jodie and Ty, etc.
For sure, and I think also with young competitors like Ty, you know, jiu-jitsu's done amazing things for him because it's keeping him out of trouble. And you know the area, Jake. Like, trouble's not necessarily super hard to find.
Yep.
So the fact that he's in the gym all the time, putting the work in, is really special to see, and I can't wait to see him keep going. Really.
Before we touch on EGI from the weekend then and some highlights that we like to, we were talking yesterday about you're going travelling. Touch on that then. What made you decide, obviously, you know, you said that's what you like to do anyway, but what made you decide to do it now, and where are you travelling to, and what made you pick these destinations?
Sure. So I've always really loved traveling. My parents have traveled a lot throughout their lives, and they took me and my little sister with them a lot when we were tiny. You know, we went everywhere. So I was really fortunate and privileged to get that experience when I was young. So I think it kind of, if you're exposed to something when you're young, it normalizes it. So for me, going traveling to mental places was it wasn't this enormous leap. And the first trip I went on by myself, like big trip, I'd finished college and I was going to go to university, but I wanted to take a year because I wanted to go to some cool places. So I went out to Thailand to do Thai boxing when I was 19. And then I got a job in Myanmar for 3 months working in the communications department of an NGO. It's the subsidiary charity of Age UK, which I'm sure most of us have heard of. They've got a lot of charity shops. And so I was working out there, which was incredible. And then I backpacked around Indonesia, kind of surfing and driving really dangerous little mopeds, of which I did come off and it hurt a lot, so be careful. So I did that, and then I went to university, and then I went straight into Teach First, the 2-year training program I've just completed. And I've done a lot of traveling throughout university and Teach First, but I haven't been able to do like a big kind of meaty trip since I was 19, and I'm 24 now, so it's long overdue. Yeah, I know. But I don't have a mortgage, I don't have kids, I have a job that I can take anywhere, and that those things aren't really accidental. I like traveling and I like moving around doing jiu-jitsu, so I've really kind of focused on building a life that is going to support that. And I have a lot of things in my corner that have helped me do that. I've got really great parents that are really supportive. You know, I've got a great partner, I'm educated, all these things. Like, it's not like I'm just lucky. Like, well, you know, there are things in my corner that are helping me do that basically. But nonetheless, I think it's important to take opportunities when you can, even if you are privileged to have them. So I finished Teach First. I've got my postgraduate diploma in education, which is really exciting. And so the plan is to go out to France for a month. My parents pretty much live out there, so they've got a house and it's lovely. So me and Sam are going to go out there, and we've got mats as well. So it's going to be a little isolated training camp for some fights that he's got coming up, and hopefully I do too. And I've got a couple of internships with National Literacy Trust and a project called Jamie's Farm, which does kind of hands-on learning with kids that have basically failed to stay in mainstream education. So a lot of kids are ex-offenders, or they're in pupil referral units. And Jamie's Farm basically gets them onto a farm for a residential program, gets them working with animals, does a lot of therapy, gets the families in, and maintains contact after they have left the farm. So I'm doing a remote internship with them and with National Literacy Trust, which promotes literacy all over the country. But I can do them remotely from France because of coronavirus. So I'll be in the sun. Yeah. I got really lucky there. So I'm doing that for August. And we were going to go straight to Portugal, but some quite cool fights have come up. So we might be cutting that short, coming home, doing the fights. And then the big trip is Southeast Asia. And we're going to go Thailand, Myanmar probably again, and Laos and the Philippines. And the plan, like we've been saving for ages. We have really been putting in the work saving, but we're going to try and stretch out for as long as we can by kind of gym hopping. And like, I'm definitely not above sleeping on mats. I will sleep anywhere, I don't care. And hopefully doing some teaching in exchange for some accommodation. So we're leaving it quite open-ended, but the plan is to kind of bounce from gym to gym, see some really beautiful things. And my little like pet project that I want to do along the way is not related really to teaching. It's just something I really love to do and I'm getting into again. And it's videography and photography. Nice. It kind of, I've been into it since I was like 11, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu and it just took over my whole life. But since lockdown, I'm getting back into it. And so I want to do like a little vlog series of every gym we visit. I want to interview the coach, film some roles, film like maybe a day in the area of like our journey to training that day, and like maybe how we chill out after training and, you know, wherever we are, and do that all over Southeast Asia, and hopefully, you know, promote some of those gyms that are out there. So that's my like little passion project that I'm gonna do along the way. But really, like the past 2 years have been really tough. They've been amazing, but they've been really, really, really hard work, teaching full time and, you know, competing internationally full time. It's taken a lot to get through. I don't regret it. I did the right thing, but I think taking a little bit of time before my master's is a constructive thing to do for me. I think if I went straight into a master's, I'd still be pretty drained. And thinking about all of these amazing gyms that I want to visit. So I think sometimes taking a pause and doing something like this, if you're able to, is actually in the long run a really good idea. And I'm 24, so I've got all the excuses and time in the world to go and do mad things around sort of the Philippines. So that's the plan for sure. But I'm really excited if you haven't got that.
Simon, you did a bit of traveling. I classed it as traveling. You went over to Argentina for a bit, and so where did you go?
I've not been to South America. I did 4 months in South Dakota during university for a study exchange, and I got to work with like the American football team, the baseball team, and the wrestling team.
Wow.
Which was really good. And I got to roll with the wrestling coach and subbed him in front of his students, which he wasn't best pleased about.
Oh my God, that's brutal. What was the sub?
I think it was an armbar.
Oh no. A pain submission as well. Like
the worst one, like during the first roll we had, he was playing wrestling rules. So like he was playing, and then as soon as he got up to his feet, when I was on top, he was sort of like yep, back to my feet. I won, didn't I? And I was like, okay.
Right.
And then the next roll, I caught him with an armbar, and he was sort of like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, glorious. Glorious.
I remember when I think, where did we go for something to eat? Was it something like, when you came back, we went for something to eat, and you was talking about it, saying that how much you loved it. And what was it part of? Was it part of, what was the course called, or what was the name of it?
Oh, so it was part of like sports rehab course. So
Camp America?
No, it didn't go to South America.
No, Camp America. Was it something like that?
Oh, no. It's just with the study exchange within the university.
Was it Erasmus, the study exchange you were on? Is it where they get? Yeah. It probably was. They're amazing. They get students kind of switching on the different countries. But no, it's a crazy cool thing to do. That sounds amazing. Yeah. What was South Dakota like?
During the semester, it was very, very busy, and then because we arrived just before it started, and the town was really quiet, and then as soon as all the students arrived, it was absolutely booming. And then we flew back on Christmas Eve, so there was like a week where there was nobody on campus apart from the international students. But like the weather change was so like drastic. We arrived in the summer and it was like 90% humidity, mid-30s all day, every day. And then during the winter, you could throw a cup of boiling water in the air and it'll turn to snow. So you got to like minus 40 and like snow up to like your waist. And it was just really, really cool.
That sounds
and
amazing.
I'd recommend anybody get the chance to do it. Like, definitely do it.
For sure, that sounds sick.
So we will now touch on EGI from the weekend. I guess for you two being active competitors anyway, I know Violet, you didn't get to compete, but you was back around the scene, and then Simon, you got to compete. What was it like building up to it? Was it daunting because of the unknown, everything that's going on now? We'll start with you, Simon. Or did that stuff not really affect you?
No, like I sort of know what to expect when I'm coming in. I suffer pretty badly from competitive anxiety anyway, which I know I need to compete more to overcome. But then, like, that was my plan this year. So the actual build up to the event, I didn't really have too many issues. Like, I knew what to expect and things like that. It's more the actual competition day, and I don't like waiting around anyway for competition. I'd rather get in there, get it done, and then get off. But yeah, so with all that going on, like, it's more so the competitive anxiety that I tend to deal with. But the way the event was run and the sort of the way you could like do it, like the separate floors for the competitors, and if you're waiting around, and just the way everything was run with everyone that was organised and all was really, really well done. Like, really smooth.
What about you? Go on, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was about to say, but the competing in the cage, that was a completely different experience.
It's been a while for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
how did you, obviously you were building up with Sam and he was competing and people around you at Stealth. What was it like? Obviously you knew you was coming in to do commentary, but obviously you're actively training as well, being in the bubble and stuff. What was it like building up from you outside looking in and prepping for it yourself?
So I was super lucky to get the elite status and be in that bubble. So I was allowed to train at Stealth, primarily for Libby Genge. We're some of each other's main training partners, and we're pretty much exactly the same weight. So I was mainly working with her. She was in my bubble with a couple of others, but the boys were there as well. George Gardner, Sam Quinn. We had Jacob in as well. So it was really amazing to be able to train again. Like, that was huge. Just being able to be on the mats with my people again was insane. It made me realize quite how much jiu-jitsu does for my mental health, for my physical health, because those first rounds were brutal. No, it was really special to be able to come back, especially because I was leaving Manchester. To be able to be back in Stealth training with my friends was really crucial. And there were really, really positive vibes at Stealth. And I think you can see that in the results that we got. You know, everyone was just excited to be training really hard again, and we were generally, like, we were drilling a lot of stuff, but hard rounds were going down as well. And yeah, it was amazing. With regards to the commentary, you asked me and I was like, yeah, go on then, why not? As a general rule, I like to kind of take opportunities unless I have a really good reason not to. So I was quite nervous to do commentary. In my own way, I had quite a lot going on in my life because I was moving, I was packing up my whole house. And the focus was really on Sam. You know, like when one of us competes, it's definitely like a team effort sort of thing. It's, if one of us is competing, then the other's preparing that person to compete in whatever way that is. So the focus, I didn't really think about doing the commentary that much, to be honest. I just really wanted to see Sam win, especially coming back after the injury. Like, seeing him injured like that, because I was there when it happened, and it was just heartbreaking. It was really, really scary and upsetting because it was a big injury, and jiu-jitsu is what he does.
And it didn't need to happen.
Yeah, it didn't. It really didn't. So yeah, that was really awful to see that, and to see him like not be able to, you know, get his t-shirt off by himself and stuff. It's genuinely really upsetting. So I was just really focused on wanting to see him go out and do what he does, because the speed at which Sam picks things up, especially he's been really focusing on like leg entries recently. And so to see him go out there and hit those leg entries that he's been hitting in the gym was just like tunnel vision, my focus. But I was also packing up like my whole life in Manchester, and that's a lot of work, as I'm sure both of you know. So that was quite stressful, because the day of Empire, my dad had actually come up to like take all my stuff down back south. So it was a crazy day. And Sam, like, obviously couldn't really help because he was preparing, you know, he slept most of the day before, which is the right thing to do. So yeah, it was pretty crazy to build up, but then I got there on the day and I just had the best feeling. I was like, stuff's gonna go really well today. Like, there's a good vibe in the air, you know. And also, like, especially because it was you running it, Jake, like, I've been to a lot of your events. I know how you like to kind of do business, and I know how you like to run things. And so I was pretty confident that with regards to the event, everything was going to be watertight, like even down to like the really good chocolate flapjacks downstairs. They were amazing. Whoever made those, lifesaver.
Shout out to Kelly Nightingale.
Well, she's incredible. Shout out to Kelly. But no, with the event, like, it was just perfect. And I find it really silly that there are some people saying that it wasn't, or whatever. I don't have time for it. It's ridiculous. It was great, and it was beautifully run. The filming was stunning. All of the setup was great. Like, I couldn't fault it, really. And then to like see like Libby and Sam and George go out and do what they did was the cherry on top, for sure.
From my point of view, obviously it was stressful even trying to put something on. The amount of stuff I had to go through, paperwork, guidelines, putting things in place, and it was more for everyone's safety, obviously protect myself as well, and what I was doing. But I wanted to make sure, look, it's been 5 to 6 months since I've run an event, and I'm normally used to running stuff every 6 to 8 weeks. And I genuinely miss it. And the worst point of it is I've no longer got my 9 to 5, so I've got so much more time. Whereas if I had my 9 to 5, I probably wouldn't think about it as much. Whereas it's my only thing I want to do right now, and I'm constantly working to try and get stuff for the end of the year. And obviously we've seen everything that's came out today with Greater Manchester being in a lockdown, or a version of a lockdown, and it's the unknown again. But one thing I did love from it, and coming back of being very humbled, was the amount of people that genuinely loved seeing other people that they used to seeing at events constantly, or would normally train with or cross train with. People chatting to each other, coaches chatting to each other, like Jason Tan, Steve, Martin Cahill, all them sort of guys there were just chatting with each other like they were best mates. So it was really cool to see that we've got this close community, and it's just a shame that we're one of the small percentage that's going to be effective for probably the longest period, whether that's the amount of events that we want to put on, or the amount of training people want to do, or the bigger training bubbles. So I'm happy that something's been out there. July's been a good month for these sort of events, not maybe for the lower end, and that's not any sort of defeatist comment to the lower ranked belts. It's just that they don't get this opportunity as much, especially on this sort of stage. So I was happy that most of these guys, including Simon, Sam, etc., got to just get out there, compete, rather than you have to be on this big stage to compete right now, which is bullshit.
Yeah, it is. And I think, like, I've obviously come up through jiu-jitsu. I'm a relatively newish. Am I still a new purple belt? I don't know. It's been under a year. It's been like 6 months. I'm gonna count that as new. Fight me on that if you want, I guess. But yeah, I think when people have invested as much time as your competitors have done, and they've put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, everything, they deserve to be on events like that. I don't think that you can expect to be on stages like that with that level of production value. Like, they're not paying to compete, whatever. Like, you do have to earn a spot in that. Like, that's an honor. Like, it's a privilege to be on those kinds of shows, and you do have to prove that you're gonna be kind of worth those 8 minutes, because otherwise someone else could take your spot. And so, like, I think sometimes people get a little bit sucked into, like, oh, I want to be on this, I want to be on that, I want to be on this. I had a really close friend of mine message me the other day. He's a white belt, but he's been training for a while, and he said, like, what can I do to, like, make a name for myself? And I just said, just be in the gym every day. Eat enough, eat properly, sleep enough. If you get an injury, take it seriously straight away. Like, I wish that there was a cheat code to getting on events like yours, and
Circle X, R1, R2.
That would be great, but no, there's not. You just have to go through. You've just got to consistently put in the work, and that's really not for everyone at all. And I think the competitors you had on, like, to be going on an event on that, like yours, out of lockdown, that's not for everyone, for sure. And I think that, your choice of competitors, it proved itself to be a really great selection, just in the amount of amazing fights we had. Like, I can't think of a fight where I was like, like, they were all sick. So you chose the right people, and they're all people that have put in the hours, So if you're out there and you're a white belt like my friend, just keep putting in the hours, dude. Sleep enough, like, drink less, just keep putting them in, and it will come out for sure.
Simon, you were one of them that struggled to train, but just wanted to get out there, didn't you?
Yeah, like, due to, like, scheduling and things like that, I got a few rounds in with my girlfriend's little brother, but there was the majority of my training, probably say 90 to 95% of it, was conditioning work, and barely got any mat time. So I was using, like, a lot of visualization and, like, just studying matches to sort of try and put myself in their shoes and just make sure that I was as prepared physically and mentally as I could. But I don't like, looking back in it, I don't think anything actually replaces mat time in preparation for comps. But like we said, like, when I spoke to you, I was happy just to get out there and just get hold of somebody.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
but back to, like, your point before about your friend about
you crossed each other then.
We did. It was both too polite to speak, but no, like,
in mine.
But no, it was. I think that was something that maybe a lot of people didn't think about on that Empire card, because you had someone like Libby, right, coming out. Her parents both trained. They've got mats downstairs in the house. Dad's a purple belt. Mum's an amazing blue belt. She was also getting the elite training in, with me, with one of the amazing stealth black belts, Emil Hader, another one of our, like, incredible purple belts. So you have someone coming from that level of prep. And then you've got someone coming from a really unorthodox style of preparation, like you, Simon, visualization, getting your conditioning in, training with people that aren't your normal training partners. That's an entirely different bag. So I don't think that there'll be many shows like that Empire card, really, with regards to kind of the differences in prep. But I think it's a real testament to our sport, frankly, of, like, how dedicated people are and how much they love it. I think it's a cool thing.
Oh, definitely. And to touch back on as well what you said about your friend, about how he wants to make a name for himself, like, a little cheat code that I'd probably say is definitely worth doing from anybody who's whether their first week of jiu-jitsu or whether they're 10, 15 years in, is visit different gyms, get down to the competitions, even if you're not competing. Like, networking does more for your name and reputation than doing well in comps will do at the beginning of like your sort of competing career.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jake, like, he'll deal with somebody completely differently if they're well-mannered, they're approachable, and he'll work with them, as opposed to somebody who's sort of, they've not really done the effort to sort of get to know different people in the scene. They've not really got to know different promoters, and almost think because they're one of the top end in the gym that anybody who speaks to them, everybody should approach them, which I've sort of seen both ends of it. And I'm sure I can speak for everybody. If you're a bit of a dick in the jiu-jitsu scene, not many people want to work with you unless you get to monumental sort of status with your actual skill set.
Even then, you know, people aren't going to want to book you for seminars. Like, they're not going to want to deal with you, man. Like,
no,
I don't. And frankly, like, if I'm not a promoter, but if I was, I'd much rather deal with someone who's slightly less flashy or less talented if they're not a massive dick than someone who's a little bit better and a massive dick. And I think that it's tricky, but I think the best way to always kind of tell if someone is someone you want around you is look at how they treat other people. How are they treating white belts? How are they treating their coach? How are they treating, you know, new starters or anyone really? Like, how are they behaving? And if it's not well, then do you really want to deal with them? You know, like,
yeah.
I have the only people I'll deal with who are genuinely being assholes is kids, because they have the best excuse in the world. They're kids. Like, they're still learning. I have endless patience for a lot of very, very, very badly behaved boys that I have taught and loved for years, you know, and I'll do anything for them. No matter how awful they are, they'll get a fresh start the next day. But I don't allot that same privilege to adults because they don't have the excuse, you know. And no, I think you're so right about, like, visit different gyms, get to know people. And also, one thing that I do, and I actually did it with Jed after I rolled with him, and he was lovely about it, is if you've rolled with someone really good, or you think maybe you didn't do a very good job, if you think of a question to ask them, or a piece of advice to ask from them, I've never had anyone, like, tell me to go away. Like, I asked Jed, I couldn't deal with his guard very well. He was playing a really unorthodox style of guard, and I just couldn't get around it. He was putting his knees, like, all the way up to, like, his chest, but just spinning, and I couldn't knee cut it. I was trying to, like, Toriando pass it. I couldn't deal with it. So when we went out for food later, I just said, like, what would you do to pass your guard? And, you know, he gave me a really great, clear answer. So I'd always say, like, you don't have to be embarrassed. You can ask. And maybe if you look a bit, like, intense, well, you'll be better. So what, you know? So I'll always try and ask a question if you can think of a good one. It goes a long way because it's personalized feedback, right? Just from a role.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the Jed match, which was the main event against Ellis Younger.
Let's do it.
And one thing I picked up on, and I've known Ellis for a long time now, and he did the original EGI like 3.5 years ago, and he was great then, but leaps and bounds difference now. And you said it on commentary, I wish the match was longer, and it is something I did mention before, about a couple of weeks before the match, and I wish I pushed it through even further, because I technically had control of it. Because of lockdown, I didn't want to put people under the pressure of a longer time limit, so I just kept it everyone to 8 minutes. But what I did realise is the new higher level leg lock game, it sort of counters a lot of the old, so the IBJJF mentality of you've got to pass the guard, then you've got to set up mount or armbar or triangle or anything really up from there. Whereas in anything that Ellis tried to do, the movement of capturing the legs or avoiding things from Jed was unreal because of how confident he was in his leg game and how confident he was not going to get past because of his style of play. Like if Ellis was flying up for a triangle, Jed would just sit back and go for the leg, and it's just one way to stop an attack is to attack yourself most of the time, which I thought was really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think what we saw from Jed, and it's something that it kind of helped me to realize something just watching that fight actually, is as someone who's only recently started playing, you know, a lot of leg entries, you have to commit 100%. And if you don't, you won't hit it. Like, you can't half-arse it. And I think we really saw that Jed, even if he perhaps wasn't like 100% gunning for the sub, he was 100% gunning for the entry. And that shut down a lot of what Alice was doing just because of that 100% commitment. So thanks, Jed, for helping me realize that. I'll be going 100% on my leg entries now. But yeah, it was a beautiful match. It was, I'd say, definitely my favorite match of the night. It was just like a showcase of amazing jiu-jitsu from both competitors.
No, I completely agree. Sam, I know you've had a busy week, so you've not had a chance to watch anything back right now. But when you was there before your match, was there anything that stuck out? Did you get to watch one or two?
Got to watch Andy and I saw Sam's finish. And yeah, like one thing that I always admire in sort of like the senior competitors is the composure before the match. Like Andy just looked focused, Sam just looked focused. Like even seeing Tyrese when he was warming up, just that one track mind of I'm in here for a job. And I didn't really get to watch many of the matches just because the way that the event was laid out. But from what I saw, like there was some very high level like jiu-jitsu going on, and for me, I like watching the sort of warm up area and sort of seeing just the way the community interacts, because like you said before, there's guys there that I've not seen for ages, like Carlos from Nottingham. Like me and him, I think bumped into him when I did the Brits in at Purple Belt, and just from there we got chatting, and then just became friends from there. Then there's like the other, like Shane, seeing him behind backstage, and everybody else. It's just great watching the community interact and sort of seeing people that I've not seen for a while. And that's, for me, that's the main thing I like about comps, as opposed to actually watching the matches.
One person definitely did a killer focus was Libby. Like the photograph of her face, literally like hand on the cage, leaning back, and it was just. And then, but Megan on the other side was happy, go lucky, was quite relaxed. I'm not saying Libby wasn't relaxed, but it's just the killer instinct, and that for a 16-year-old, it's something to admire.
Yeah, I was super. Obviously, like Libby Genge is my honorary little sister. She's my main training partner. I love her to the ends of the earth. But I've got to admit, I was so impressed by Megan, because I know what it is like to deal with Libby going for those K-guard entries and just throwing things up. It's a nightmare. It's really hard. She's very good at it. And Megan, coming from an MMA background, she looks so composed. She shut down 2 to 3 of Libby's best entries before Libby pushed through and got the final one. And yeah, I was just amazed. I just thought, you know what? Like, you've come out of your game. You're out of MMA, you're fighting a girl, this is all she does jiu-jitsu, and you are hanging with her. Like, Megan, you know what, massive round of applause, because that is not something that many grown men could do. And here we have, you know, a young girl. How old is Megan?
I think she's 21 now.
Yeah,
I got that wrong, Megan, I'm sorry.
A young early 20s or teen girl, and she didn't only just put on a great show, she did what she meant to do out there. And I know she didn't get the win, but I think that we should really recognize how impressive not just her composure was, but her defense. And it's not easy to give Libby a really good fight, because I think one of our worries, like at Stealth, was that it would be over quickly, and we had that much belief in Libby. And I think it was actually really great for Libby to be able to showcase her durability, because one of the worries that I know some people had leading up to the fight was that Libby had competed a lot in the juvenile divisions, done very, very well. But the adults division's a different game. It's really physical. And women especially are really, really physical. Because, and I think everyone assumes that it's going to be the opposite way around, but you've got to remember that most women, especially women competing on a decent level, are probably one of a very small handful in their gym. So there's a real pressure to prove like how good you are and to do your gym proud. Like, you've been the one in your gym, or one of a few, you really want to show off what you can do. And so women go hard in comps, you know, they really do. And so for Libby to manage that well with an adult was fantastic. And she has been talking about some other women that she'd really like to fight. I know she'd like to fight Kate, who was also on the card. I'd love to see that match. I'm shouting it from the heavens, like, let's put it on. They're the same weight. But no, I was really impressed by both girls in that fight.
The other female match on the card before we get on to Kate's was Dakota versus Charlotte, and it was hard from your position in commentary. You didn't, because I watched it back and I noticed you guys didn't notice it. Was that it was a sort of tail of a trap leg, so she wasn't in half guard and wasn't in guard. The opposite leg was trapped, so her left leg, Dakota's left leg was trapped, and her right leg was over on the sort of Charlie's opposite side, so like they were crossed, if that made sense.
Yeah.
So it was Charlie couldn't recover guard, and Dakota found it difficult to try and pass, so it made it look like it was just a top heavy performance. Whereas I could see Charlie trying to get the position, but she either knew if she did let go of the leg, she was either going to get mounted or passed. Yeah. And then on Dakota's point of view, because she was sort of entangled, it was difficult for her to get a weight for a long time. So it's one fight that maybe I would love to see again, but it just shows that their level is quite high in the MMA scene, where when you include the strikes, it does break it down. If Dakota from the top had strikes, maybe it would have opened up. If Charlie's striking is very, very good, she put that on against Levi in the last fight. The first round was definitely hers. And it just shows that when you take all that away and you go to the jiu-jitsu side, one thing over another, and it's everything shut down. So I look forward to that match. It didn't live up to the finish that I thought both girls could have had, but I would love to see that again. But I feel like female jiu-jitsu is amazing right now.
Yeah, I think also in comps, I end up in some really weird situations that I don't really end up in the gym, because if I get there in the gym, we both kind of like laugh and keep going. Like I was once competing against Louise Corrigan, who's an amazing female masters athlete. I think she's still a blue belt, but she's super tough. And we ended up in donkey guard, and I was like, I was on top, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I've never been here. And she also didn't know what to do, had never been there. And it's in those moments that when you're both hanging on, because you don't want to lose your position, that you just have to take a pause and think, all right, I'm going to have to be a bit creative here. Like, what's the most important thing? What do I need to defend? And you have to take that pause. But in an event like yours, that's a big stage. You know, it's hard to think think logically through. So, you know, I would love to see Dakota and Charlie again, because they're awesome. They're great girls.
We'll touch on the last female match then, full circle. So we've got Kate and Paula. Touching it a lot. Paula took it on 3 days' notice because of an unfortunate opponent pull-out, which just happened in this game. We do have pull-outs. We was lucky enough just to have the one. Simon nearly had another, which I didn't tell him until the day of the event on purpose. With Junaid was approached by Brave to fight 2 days afterwards in Romania, but that fell through because of everything that's going on with COVID. So I know how certain athletes deal with that stuff, and I know Simon likes to just be locked in, concentrate on one person, where I know if someone like Simon's told it might be 2 or 3 different people, it can rock you a little bit. So that I'm not going to even mention it until I really have to. Me, Lee, and the rest of the guys were in the background looking at so many different opponents. We had 1 or 2 in the pipeline, which I've still not even told Simon, where maybe future opponents for VSI. But yeah, let's talk through that, Simon. If you was told a couple of days before that Junaid was definitely out when we were looking, do you feel like that would have rocked you a little bit? And the unknown, are you competing? Are you not competing? Who are you competing against?
Personally, not too much. No, I don't look at my opponents. I try not. I just avoid it. I did it when I first started competing, where as soon as the bracket was out, I'd get on Facebook and try and track down who I was against, and I just end up in my own head and just in a really bad place mentally before the comp. Whereas now I just sort of, oh, cool, I've got them. It's not going to change what my game plan is. It's just I might need to. Yeah, no, don't really change much for me, to be fair. Thinking about it, I just like to. I don't look too much into it. I just like to get in there, do what I do, and then come back.
Fair enough. Well, let's talk on Kate. talk on Kate and Paula.
Cake.
We'll go for cake as well, mate.
Don't talk about cake. I've had enough of that the last 6 months.
I'm going this afternoon for some.
Let's talk through that matchup because you've been Kate quite well, being from she now trains in Brighton where you're from, under Elements under Yusuf, and then Paul stepping in last minute. Talk about that as a female point of view, and then you watching the match as well.
Sure. So Kate and I have been like ships passing in the night at Elements. We've trained together a handful of times, but really not that many times at all, just because of how much I move around. She moved to Cyprus for a while. She moves around a lot too. So I wouldn't consider us like training partners at all. We just happen to train at the same gym, but at different times. And one thing about Kate that I feel like a lot of people know is she works hard. She really does. She trains a crazy amount and then gets patched together like kind of by her physios and by the kind of amazing people she has in her corner. So Kate works hard. She does face injuries and she will do anything she can to train through them. That is Kate, and she isn't going to change. So I think coming into that fight, I found out afterwards that she says she hurt her elbow. That is Kate all over. She is definitely not one to let an injury get in her way whatsoever. She's a really exciting competitor. She'll go for all sorts of submissions from anywhere, which is, I think, something that's nice to see on the women's scene, because one of the things I get told the most, and I know I'm not alone, is, oh my goodness, you're really technical. And I'm like, let's unpack that. What does that mean? Like, oh, I'm really technical. Like, what does that mean that I'm doing the techniques right? Like, what? I don't know what that means, but that's a bit of a red herring. Back to Kate. She goes for things 100%, and I like seeing that. One thing that I noticed in her game, and I think I said it at the end of the commentary, was her game has become more smooth. And I think that instead of just like going all out, like trying to kill someone, she's taking her time to really set her positions before she shoots her subs. And I think that is only going to elevate her game. I think that the work that she's been putting in with Yusuf Nabi and Dom Dillon, who we saw on Polaris recently, he's amazing, great coach, great competitor. The work that she's been doing closely with them, I think, has only been elevating her as a competitor. And I think we saw that against Paula. Kate wasn't out really trying to like hurt Paula. She was really going for the submission, and she hit a beautiful armbar, let go of it straight away. Paula wasn't hurt. She helped Paula up. And I think that, it's really nice to see someone's growth in a sport, and especially when that growth leads to like really beautiful, clean submissions. And, Paula especially, I was really impressed by Paula. I rolled with her at the Northwest Open mats that I put on. And it looks like she's made some really, really deep improvements. And to take that kind of match on 3 days, like, you can't fault her for anything at all. So just from both ladies, I was really impressed, and I was really proud to see that level of match on a stage. I feel like we've got a really great range of women's matches and different abilities and different skill sets. I can't fault it, to be honest. I think both women did a great job in different ways, and I know I've said it, but I would love to see Libby and Kate at some point. I think that would be fantastic, because they're very different styles, very different experience kind of journeys, if that's a phrase. They've come to jiu-jitsu in different ways. I would love to see it happen for sure.
Let's touch on, so last night we announced the performance of the night winners, which is Marlon Jones, who took on Jack Fletcher, and then Shane Curtis, who took on Ty. Let's touch on them matches, and maybe if you, I know Sam's not seen the whole event because he was competing and he's not been able to this week, but would you agree with them performance of the night? So would you, obviously I know it's hard because you're close to Ty and stuff, and I'm in the completely same boat. Let's talk about them two matches, and if you think anyone else had performance of the night as well.
So if we start with Marlon, I didn't know him before the event. I didn't know his opponent. That wasn't a match that I had like a deep level of knowledge of, and I was just absolutely blown away by his performance. It was so clean. Like, I don't think there was a mistake made. He looked so composed. He looked so comfortable. Everything he did naturally led to the next position. It was just beautiful, and his finish was crisp. So I think that as match of the night was just, I think it had to be. And I think because of the fact that I didn't know who he was, and quite a lot of people know him, I assume, from more of an MMA background. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
KFC bantamweight champion. So
He's quite a... Oh, there's his I knew he was an MMA guy, and I'd heard he's like one of the rising stars out of his gym. But to be putting on a jiu-jitsu show like that, I mean, that was a statement made, I think, from Marlon. And he did it, as we were saying earlier, with such class and, sportsmanship. I think 100% man deserves a mouth guard. Hand it over. Like, he was great. Everyone's just going to say I'm biased, but I think that Sam should have had the other sub of the night. Call me biased. Just say it. It's fine. I'm sticking by my guns. I think he hit fastest sub of the night, I believe. And again, the finish was pristine. He was coming off an injury. Absolutely nothing against Shane. I think Shane did an amazing job. It's a beautiful triangle. The finish was perfect. It was great. But yeah, I think, maybe I am biased, but I don't think I am. Maybe that's a sign of bias. But yeah, I just think the speed of Sam's finish and just the whole entry, it was, that's my personal opinion. So, but there were so many good matches. I don't know how you chose. I think Marlon definitely. I would have chosen Marlon too. But then the other one, I mean, you could have given it to Libby. You could have given it to Sam. Who else had a crazy finish? I mean, Jed and Ellis. That's it. I mean, like, I said to Jed afterwards, I was like, that was my favorite fight. And he was like, you can't say that. And I was like, why not? And he was like, Sam's on the card. And I was like, yeah, but that was over so fast. Like, I enjoyed watching yours more. Like, I need a slow-mo to watch Sam's again. Like, but no, I think that was a hard call you had to make there.
It was. I spoke to numerous different people, and like you say, Marlon was first out of everyone's mouths. And I was looking at excess guard, mouth guards. So thanks for sponsoring the event, Chris. He's like, screw it, I'll give out another one. So we got to work on looking for a second person. And like you say, Shane got it, but it was you had Sam, Liam McCracken. His trip takedown and taking the back of Anthony was unreal, and Anthony's no joke. Obviously, like Marlon facing Jack. Jack is one of the great grapplers coming through. Who else did we have?
Andrew Hardwick.
Yes,
was awesome. He was excellent.
Who else did we have? Teddy getting the win over Carl, because we know how good Carl is. And it's weird because Carl is from my neck of the woods as well, being North Manchester. So, and we went over to Ireland last year, and I've supported him, and I've got a lot of love for Carl. But then on the flip side with Teddy, I've knew Teddy for literally like less than 2 years. From making his MMA debut at like 17, nearly 18, and now he's the UKFC lightweight champion, and he walks through people now. I love between Carl and Teddy and the main event, which were my two favourite matches. Watching back of how close they were, but I think we were so lucky because from start to finish, one of the judges said that the opening match of Riley and Yayan was a great opener. Let's talk about that quickly then. The opener for you, it was first match, first time on commentary. How do you feel like that match went for you?
So I think my commentary, like as I warmed up and got used to it, it definitely got like a little, and not like, I don't think I was bad to start with, but I think I just got more comfortable as I think like 1 or 2 matches in. But Riley, like he came out and he was game for anything. And I love seeing like younger, scrappy competitors who are just good to go. And he definitely was. I mean, I messaged Shane before the event because Riley trains with Shane. And I said, what can I say about Riley? And Shane said, he loves to scramble. He loves, he likes to wrestle and whatever. And he'll throw everything in the kitchen sink at it until it works. And I think we saw that from him, he genuinely just wanted to put on a really good fight. And I really think he did. He looked sick out there. And I'd love to see him doing more and more as he keeps going. I think he's got real promise. He's one of those competitors that's super friendly. He's very respectful. He's happy to meet anyone, talk to anyone. And I think that can only really be in your corner, especially when you're coming up. I think it's good to see. And, training with people like Shane will only help him. So, and he got a great opponent as well. You can't put on a good fight without a great opponent. And I think Yayan really, really met him with that. So, no, I really enjoyed that. And I think you're right. It was a great way to start the event because it said, look, the first match on the card was that good. If you're competing, you better be ready to throw down, because like it looks sick. So no, I really enjoyed the match. And commentating, I mean, me and Lee joke that we sit at the side of the mats and chat shit all day anyway, so it was a natural transition to wear headsets. And Lee's amazing, you know, he's a great coach, he's a great, you know, kind of partner in the gym, and he really knows his stuff. So having him kind of there, I you know, I wouldn't have been able to commentate as well as I did without Lee kind of there, because it is a two-man job, I think.
Shout out to Lee, because he did put most of this card together, bar like the MMA guys, which I brought in, and I did want to stay sort of independent from it. Obviously, I gave my input of what I wanted and who I wanted within reason. But he did a great job of putting the card together. And one thing that we did learn from each other, speaking so much, and we do speak a lot anyway about Empire because he's one of my head guys with Carl Kaser, is he has his way of thinking because he's from the media background at BBC, and I have my way of thinking. And obviously, because it's my event, I'll do things the way I want. He did humbly say, "You were right." It was an argument of you should release all the fights in one go. And I was like, no, that's not how this game works. You need to release them individual, give everyone their props on their own, and then you get more feedback that way. And he did humbly come back and was like, you were right. But there were things that he was right about. He mentioned who to put on first, which is normally something I pick up on. He's like, no, Riley and Yehan needs to go first. I've ref these guys. I know they'll give it. I was like, boom. I was like, who should be out of main event? And this was prior to Ben Hills and Liam Cann and Jed versus Ellis even coming into the picture. And it was Ty and Shane. Now, I completely agreed with it, but because of my MMA side and know how high level and well-known certain individuals are, like Liam and Marlon and stuff, I could have pushed them to main event quite easily because of fanfare. But he made a great point that should be main event, and a couple of others did. So Lee's mind works great, and it's great to have him on board and someone that supports me so much. So massive shout out to Lee and putting this together, because I feel like some of the matches, or all the matches, over-delivered. Whether that was a quick sub and some people were disappointed, or whether that was a fight of the night performance, which we got. One thing I do want to touch on, because it's more controversial, but it's a bit of fun, was some of the judges' decisions, because I know Simon wasn't happy with his. Because I don't mind touching on it, because I've watched it back, and me and Simon spoke about it. On the day, I picked Junaid. Watching it back, I picked Simon. What do you think, Violet, being the commentator?
Well, put me on the spot, why don't you? Yeah, I thought Junaid did a really great job too. I think it was close, but Junaid wasn't who I picked watching it live. And I haven't watched your match back, Simon, mainly because you didn't win, and I didn't want to watch you lose again. I really struggle to watch people's matches back if my person doesn't win, because I get really invested in my friends' fights. And like Steve Campbell, my coach, jokes that like I'm going to get banned from venues one day because I get really hyped up. I'm that person that's like shouting at the side. I've tried to tone it down, and it's not who I am. So if you want a hype man, I'm right here, and I've got a high pitched voice, so it really cuts through, you know. You know, it's me. Yeah, and no, but it wasn't what I thought was gonna come out. And I'm actually not sure what swung their decision. I was thinking perhaps it was some of the exchanges near the cage. That was my thought, that perhaps they looked at those. But I mean, I'm not a judge. I can only comment on like what I see as a non-judge. But no, it was not how I would have made that decision at all. But you know, sometimes judges make crap decisions, or they make decisions that on the night look decent. And also, like, if you think about perspective around the cage, like what I saw is going to be different. Just like with Dakota and Charlie, you saw something I didn't. Maybe the judges, maybe they're having a little sip of coffee when the good stuff was going on. We just don't know. So not how I would have scored it. And I would actually really love to see it again, because you're such an exciting competitor, Simon. Like whenever I see that you've got a match on, I genuinely really like watching it. I watched you compete against Sam at Empire ages ago, like years ago, and I was there like, oh my god.
That's happened as well.
It's all right. You still look great. I think you put a beating on him as well. But no, there are just some people out there that you just love to watch, and you're not as like invested in the result because you just know it's going to be a good time. And I was speaking to my my younger sister, who doesn't do jiu-jitsu at all, but she wants to start mixed martial arts. Finally, I'm so excited. But she watched some of the card, and I said, like, which matches did you like? And she was like, I liked the ones where there was lots of moving around and they didn't stay in one place a lot. And I was like, okay, like, why was that interesting? And she said, well, when they're all stuck in one place, I don't know who's winning. And she was like, I used to think I knew who was winning. I thought it'd be the person on top. And that isn't the case in jiu-jitsu. She was like, in MMA, you can tell who's winning really quick because they're punching someone in the face normally. And I was like, that makes sense. So I think with regards to jiu-jitsu becoming more of a spectator sport, the competitors that make it very obvious when they're winning are often the ones that people like to watch. And I think the weird thing about your fight, Simon, was to perhaps the untrained eye, sometimes it didn't look like you were winning, but to the trained eye. Yeah. But to the trained eye, I was like, well, no, he's doing really good here because he's got off the cage and he's getting up. Like, so I think it does come down to kind of what jiu-jitsu you like to watch. And also, you know, if you're going to judge it, you need to recognize that some of the positions that look like you're in deep water are actually a good place to be. Like, I don't play a lot of half guard, but Libby does. And you'd think sometimes when Libby's in deep half that she's really in deep water. She's not. She's very happy. She's chilling out. So jiu-jitsu is weird like that. And I wonder what we could do to make it more kind of spectator friendly to the untrained eye. It's an interesting
I guess the commentating like helps with that, doesn't it? Because like you say that's like in UFC, for example, Joe Rogan's job is to sort of explain the grappling exchanges.
Yeah.
And I've not listened back to it, but from the feedback that I've heard is like you and Lee did a great job of sort of explaining what was going on and made it accessible for those that might not necessarily be into grappling, but they know somebody competing. And yeah, the feedback that I've heard from other people is that you did a great job of pretty much explaining and sort of being like, here's what's going on, this is happening, and things like that.
Oh, thank you. No, one thing that I like to do, if a new white belt, and I've got to admit, especially if it's a woman, pretty much always if it's a woman, if I meet a new white belt woman and they're in the gym, I always try and make an effort to kind of make sure I'm sharing some of my time with them. And, you know, even if it's just having a chat, like it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu focused. And I often run into the issue that most people meet me and then they're like, oh, I thought you were like really scary at first, and then we start talking and you're not. But I think it's because my face is quite I've got a resting bitch face when I'm walking around. It's who I am. It's fine. I like it. But one of the things that I like to do if I've met a new white belt woman and, you know, we're sat chatting at the side of the match, is we'll watch a roll together and I'll talk them through what's going on. And I'll say, okay, so he's, you know, it looks like he's in trouble because he's in guard, but actually, you know, he's going to try and attack the arms, or he's going to try and shoot triangle, or maybe he'll reverse the position. And it was something that someone did with me when I was starting out, and it really, really, really helped, just having a role narrated. And so I think when I was commentating, that was like an element that I really wanted to bring in without being patronizing, because I'm not a black belt, I'm a purple belt, and there are going to be things that I miss and don't understand, you know. I think I even said when someone was on someone's back, I can't remember which match, I was like, oh, it looks like he's going to the weak side, and Lee was like, you know what, it's not always a weak side, like some people play that. And I was like, oh cool, I learned something. Like, I definitely don't know it all, but I think just breaking down the basic bits is really helpful for people like my sister who were just tuning in to watch a bit of a scrap, and she got that, so she's happy.
Si, I know you need to shoot off now, so when you need to shoot, just go. Me and Violet will finish up.
Yeah.
A couple of more matches that we need to go on. Violet,
see you later.
See you later, Si.
See you, Si.
So a couple more matches I want to touch on, and more kind of the decisions which didn't go the way I would have thought was Kieran and Abe. So obviously I'm close with Abe. I work with Abe, UKFC. But I didn't think he won the fight. Maybe let me talk through you as a commentator point of view. Did you agree, disagree with it? How close did you see the fight as?
I've got to admit, it's not a match that's like super duper fresh in my memory. I remember watching it, and I know Kieran casually. I haven't met him lots of times, But I remember, and I don't know if it was my bias, because obviously I know Kieran, I don't know AB. Kieran's got such a lovely like wrestle up style that I think's also really impressive, because he's not a large man, and his ability to kind of wrestle up from the ground to standing, especially with really talented opponents like AB. I mean, I feel like that should have counted for more than perhaps it did. His ability to keep the pace going and keep working with it. Again, it's not a match that I can say as much on as the others, but so I won't comment on the decision, because I don't just want to be cheeky and be like, screw the judges. But I do remember it being really, really close and a great one to watch. I'd love to see Kieran on more of these things. I feel like he's a bit of an underground secret. And I also know from speaking to him that he had been able to do very, very, very little prep.
Yeah.
And so to put on that performance with that little prep, I think, I mean, let's see him when he's had a few months of a camp in him. That would be, maybe a rematch would be fantastic once both competitors have really had a chance to dig into their prep. But no, I'm not sure about the decision, but I know that it was very close.
Yeah, I think I scored it more because of his guillotines were so tight, and maybe he had to literally escape them by rolling, whatever, on some occasions. I just feel like that was obviously when scoring criteria. I think that's what you should have won it on. But it was uber close, and I didn't disagree with the decision at the time. Just watching it back, I just thought maybe it should have gone the other way. But
I remember those guillotines now, and they looked brutal. I was so impressed by the escapes, frankly.
It was from the single leg entry, so Ailey went in for the single leg, and it was just sort of like a ninja choke, sort of, or a Marcelo choke, just quite tight. But Abe is a veteran, and I've seen him in worse positions than that. And in MMA fights, and when he's fought around the world and stuff, that's his sort of game. He sort of battles through. It's his life generally. He battles through everything that he's ever done in his life, and I don't think that'll be the last time as well. With Kieran as well, I was training with him when he first started 8 years ago, whenever it was, when he was a white belt and I was like a blue belt at the time. And he was so good then because he was so small, like 55 kilograms piss wet through. He had no choice but to use technique. He didn't have the power against other people, and it's come on leaps and bounds. So yeah, I completely agree. He's definitely a secret and someone that I would love to try and get more matches for in the future. Maybe we see him and Aaron again at some point. I know he's fought him numerous times on the jiu-jitsu scene at like Empire. The last one we've really got to touch on is the co-main, because that was quite a close fight in Liam Khan and Ben Hills. Talk us through how you seen this one.
So I've met Liam a few times, and I trained with him at Scramble Academy about 2 years ago. Absolutely lovely man, so wonderful, brilliant coach as well. I went down there when he was, lighter than me, I think, or maybe even the same weight. I went down when he was maybe 66, 67, perhaps a little heavier. And watching him on Empire, he didn't look like himself to me. I know that he's bulked up really, really, really heavy, and to be honest, I was impressed that he managed to move the way he did with that degree of weight gain. I don't speak from experience. I've never put on that much weight, so, as quickly as he has. But I just feel like the really beautiful and unique parts of his game were maybe squashed a little bit. And from rolling with him, just like how smooth his transitions are, I think that that's something that people maybe don't recognize about Liam, is that it's not just that he's got all of these amazing aspects of his game, it's how well he can tie them together and how well he can flow them. He's a flowy competitor, and we saw that in his fight on Polaris. That was a huge win for him. But I feel like on Empire, he looked like he was still managing how to maintain his style or adapt his style for a weight gain. And I don't like to comment on people's weight because it's not my business, frankly. But if you're on a professional show, weight is, weight's an aspect, and weight difference is an aspect. And I personally would love to see him go back down a little lighter, because I feel like the things that I loved about watching his game are perhaps tied to the lighter weight. But also, that maybe feels like I'm chatting a bit too much shit, but then if you look at what he managed on Empire, Ben Hills, his guillotine game is brutal. Like, he's got the longest arms known to man, and he still manages to wrap them around people's necks, and it's hard to get out of those. And yet, I think Liam, what amazed me about him was the the fact that these guillotines were sunk deep, that I could see how deep they were. They were on, and Liam just went really still and very fluid and very calm. And that's where I saw the biggest aspect of kind of the Liam that I rolled with at Scramble and the Liam that I saw on Polaris, was his ability to be very still and to really hone in on that escape. And we were talking about it with Dakota and Charlie, this ability to really think in the moment in a fight. And I know from experience, it's really hard to do. I've made some really screwed up decisions in fights because my brain is just set on winning. It's not set on the technique. And I think in Liam, we really saw his experience shine through and his ability to think, all right, I'm in the guillotine, but I can still just about breathe. I've got the blood flowing a tiny bit. I'm going to come out of it. So yeah, big ups to Liam, especially with that degree of weight gain. He looked like a different person out there. But then also, I really enjoyed seeing Ben Hills in a match that had a lot more movement. A lot of his matches become, I find, sometimes quite tied up. And he's very good at, when he's getting into something and then he gets in a bit of danger, he's actually very good at backing out and resetting. I've seen that when he fought Sam on Grapple Fest. He's very, very good at setting his position. And if he's not getting what he wants, he has no issue with backing out and resetting, which I think is a skill that's overlooked a lot in jiu-jitsu, and it's really powerful. You'll see people like the Rotolo brothers do it as well. They're very good at setting what they want, and if they don't get it, out and then back in straight away. And Ben does that very well. I think the decision was fair. I think that was bang on just because of the sub attempt, but it's a match that, I mean, I would like to see it again, but with the weight with Liam, I think, you know, perhaps an open weight. I'd actually love to see that. And because I think that Liam's kind of brilliance really comes from his ability to be a smaller man in jiu-jitsu, but to use that and I've seen him take down some big men. So yeah, it's something that I would actually love to see again. It was definitely one of the most interesting fights on the card, and a great performance from both.
I had a frank conversation afterwards, because he was playing the match back through in his head on how the judges went that way, and I was honest with him. Literally, what you said is, look, this is your first time out of not really training because of lockdown. You're kilos bigger, which because you've been bulking up, you've been doing weights, etc., which is fine, but you're not going to compete the same because your body's reacting differently. You're going to be a bit slower, and your main factor is your speed. What he did to Kush Fishgold on Polaris is he outperformed him because he was able to maintain that performance, and Chris just couldn't keep up after a bit, and that's what frustrated him, and that's what I said to him. But as in Ben, he's used to competing at a weight. He knows how to control people. He knows how to position himself, come out, like you said, step back, go back in. He was getting the more submission attempts, and it was close. I think it was like 3-2 or 2-1 or something like that. It was so close in relation to, because Liam did have the match control, but down to submissions, it went to Ben.
Yeah.
I agree. Maybe if Liam went back down to his normal weight and that match was done at an open weight, it could be different, because Liam's position and speed and relentlessness will probably shine through. But Ben could do the exact same thing again. Really don't know. They're both are top competitors.
Absolutely.
I still think Liam's got a lot to show though, and I feel like that'll make him realise that he's going to build his strength, but his main advantage is how relentless of his speed he is.
Yeah, he's so durable as well, Liam. Like, his durability, his creativity, and also the speed that lets him tie those things together in a match. I mean, he does jiu-jitsu that, like, it looks like an art form. It looks so beautiful to watch. He's inverting and he's shooting up and he's bailing out and he's straight back in. And I think, like, there's no way you can move like that when you're the weight that he is now. And there's great things that come with that weight, you know, there's a different game to play. I know when I've like really been kind of smashing cake after a comp, and I'm still training a lot, but I'm eating enough for a small family. Like, my jiu-jitsu is different, and I'm not saying it's worse, I'm not saying it's better, but it's different. I can't move with the speed I normally do, and that's only a 3-ish kilo gain. I don't fluctuate that much, and I still really notice it. So I don't know how much weight Liam's put on, but it's certainly more than 3 kilos. I mean, he looked huge. He looked so strong. Like, he looked like a super muscle bound guy had eaten Liam Can. Like, he looked great. But I think when you play a game like Liam's that is so based in timing and speed and it's not flexibility, but it's his ability to move. You're going to have to take some time to adapt to a much higher weight. To be honest, I think if anyone can do it, it's going to be Liam.
Yeah, I agree with that. If
So
he decided,
adaptable.
yeah, I think if he stayed at this weight and got used to it and trained and got his, obviously, because no one's really training as much as they want to and not with the right training partners they would normally want to. If he maintained this for another 3 to 6 months and was up like he was last year, that could be his new weight gladly, because he's built that strength. Because if, like I say, for the 8 minutes, he technically controlled the fight. He was on top for most of it. He powered out of anything that Ben put on within reason. But yeah, based on sub attempts, I give it Ben, or the more threatening anyway. But that was a great co-main event. I think the only fight I'm looking at my other screen now, the only fight we've not touched on, I think it's cool not to touch on this fight because it was a call-out fight, was Jake Moody and Curtis Taylor. Jake called out Curtis, which is a lot of pressure on both sides, really. You're calling out someone, you've got to beat them, whereas in Curtis comes in, I've been called out, it's like, okay, you've called me out, I'm going to beat you now. It was a fun matchup for the time that it was there, and then Curtis started controlling. I think, did he get it with the Darce choke?
Yeah, it was a Darce. He had a lovely Darce. And one thing that I loved, I don't know Curtis well at all. I haven't seen him compete before. But he was a really excellent example of someone who is intent on enforcing their game. And he said, I'm hitting this Darce. And I think he hit it on maybe his second, third attempt, maybe even fourth, I can't remember. But he knew what he was looking for. And he didn't quit when he didn't hit it the first 2 times. It's the example of what Ben Hills is good at, which is setting your position. If you don't get it, you try again, and you try again until you hit it. And Curtis did a great job. I mean, but then Jake Moody, he didn't win. He got Darce, but he picked himself up and he was back training the next day. And I think what a lot of people don't know about Jake is that he hasn't been training for very long. I think he's got I think it's under 3 years, I think it's 2.5. I mean, I might be chatting shit, but I know it's not long. And he's just got the best attitude in the gym. He's never in a bad mood. He trains so hard with really high-level guys. He'll throw down with
Jake
anyone.
Moody, never in a bad mood.
What? He can be a bit stroppy. He can be a bit stroppy, but he's never a dick, right? He's great, and he rides for his team so hard. Right before Sam's fight, I get really nervous when Sam fights. I do. And when Ty fights, I was even nervous for Jed. If someone's part of my team, then... Yeah. I get nervous. And I said to Jake, he was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm nervous, mate. I really want Sam to win." And Jake just looked at me and he just went, "He will." And that was it. And I was like, "He will." But Jake, he is making such immense progress so quickly. And he's training with people like Ty, Sam, Jed. He's training all over. And I just can't wait to see what he does in 6 months to a year, because he is just getting started. And I mean, call-outs make me nervous. They do. I don't know if I'm that bold yet, but I think Curtis, they both did a great job in different ways, but Curtis knew what he wanted, he went after it, and he hit a beautiful Darce. So big up to him for sure.
Awesome. So I think that's most of the card covered, if not all of it. Violet, it's been a pleasure. If people want to follow your journey now, you're going to go traveling, or just want to follow your jiu-jitsu journey, what's your handles on social media?
Everyone's going to laugh at my middle name, but it is actually my middle name, but it's spelled with an X. So it's Violet Xanthi BJJ, and Xanthi is spelled Xanthe. I can only spell out loud with my finger, just allow it. So Violet Xanthi BJJ, you can find me on Instagram, and my photo account is just Violet Xanthi Photos. So it's pretty simple, to be honest. But yeah, it would be lovely to have some messages from people if you want to talk about anything, or just call me out for my bullshit, talking shit about your friends on Empire, some bold little purple belt being like, no. But yeah, it would be great to have some new people on board. So thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to commentate, because I've had a lot of messages from some really lovely people saying how great it was to see a woman commentating. And so I think, you deserve some recognition for giving me that opportunity. And I hope that, I did us ladies proud. I feel like I did. I'm proud of what I did. And no, I think it's important in so many ways to not just see women on the stage or in the cage in jiu-jitsu, but also to see them in the other roles, to see them commentating. You had so many women working the event as well. And it's those things that I think a lot of people don't think will make that much difference. But I mean, I remember the first female black belt I ever met. It was Leonie Munslow. And I met her after I'd seen her on Polaris, and I still look up to Leonie in so many ways, because she was the first woman I saw that was doing what I wanted to do and smashing it. And so I think to see, if you're a white belt or if you're young, or even if you're a masters athlete and you've just started, to see a woman in positions of knowledge and in positions of some kind of power and expertise is huge. So thank you for being mindful of that and making that conscious choice, because it's people like you that the change is coming from. So thank you.
No, it was definitely someone obviously working with you in the past where I knew it was a smart choice. And I will be honest, I have to think about these things to make sure inclusion is a big thing. And I hate to think about it at the point of view that I have to do it to make me look good or Empire look good. But I thought about it and it felt natural. I knew it didn't feel like I was going to the next stage of I have to do it. With you, I feel like a boy-girl commentary team worked definitely. You and Lee were perfect together, and it's not just you getting messages saying how good you both were or how good you were. You didn't just do women a good shout. You did jiu-jitsu a good shout, full stop, both of you. And you've not seen it yet because you're not probably not see your phone, but there's an Instagram post put out for you and Lee at 11 o'clock. Just after this.
I'll find out. But yeah, I think there is often real concerns regarding tokenism and like getting a woman on or getting someone who's BAME on just because they're a part of that demographic. But because the system is not set up at the moment to necessarily include people that are LGBT, BAME, women, whatever, sometimes it takes the pause that you took and the conscious decision that you made, not to just put me on because then you'll be told well done, but to put me on to be a part of the change. And I think you did it really well, and you did it in the right way. So thank you.
Because of the MMA side and the jiu-jitsu side, from the top of my head, I couldn't think of a female commentator apart from the wrestling industry.
Yeah.
Crazy. And I know you get guest commentators like Molly McCann's done Cage Warriors and stuff like that, but
she's sick.
I really don't feel like I feel like there is a lot of females that have the knowledge that can just go out and do that. And I don't feel like the guys should lose their place if they're still good enough.
No.
But you definitely stepped in, and you and Lee were very, very natural at it. And even Sharefight, who filmed it, obviously, who listens to make sure things are going perfect, he was outstanding that it was both of your first times. And so I think it's a massive shout out to you and Lee. I hope to get you back. Now you're traveling, we'll have to see where you are in the world.
For sure. But yeah, always get in contact because I'm always all over the place.
But it's been a pleasure, Violet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you soon.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Peace, guys.